What's up, guys? CJ here, and welcome back to another all-new episode of Super Friends, episode number 87, as Tim was kind enough to remind me before we even started recording. Speaking of Tim, he's here, as always, and we're joined by Luke, as per the usual. How you guys doing today?
I'm tired. Just a busy day for me today. Just got off of work before we did this, and then I got something else to do for Hybrid Network later in the day.
Hey, hallelujah, right? Oh, it never stops. I wake up in the morning and I basically sit down on my computer and I don't think I leave for most of the day. Like I eat like lunch and dinner and that's about it. Luke, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty great, actually.
Doing pretty
Way
fantastic.
better than you two.
Yeah.
It's like I woke up, I had a cup of coffee, I did the crossword.
I took a little mini nap.
Just stood there for a minute, let my toes feel the carpet.
Yeah, had some coffee, did my run, so I feel pretty great.
Luke feels fantastic. Nothing makes me feel better than a run, and hopefully I'll get to that at some point today. But we do actually have a lot of big DC news, kind of just in the last 24 hours. We've gotten a ton of news, not just DC. This Han Solo director news is crazy stuff, but this isn't a Star Wars podcast, so we aren't going to necessarily talk about that, but there's some fallout from that we might end up addressing at some point. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But we do actually have some interesting new details about the Wonder Woman sequel, a bunch of higher-ups at WB and DC talking about the future of the DCEU, and of course, that big news about the HBO Watchmen TV series. We're going to be discussing that as well, and then answering your questions. But without further ado, you guys ready to dive right in?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And in that top story, there actually is movement on the Wonder Woman sequel. It seems pretty soon, right? I mean, it's only been 3 weeks that it's been out, but it was actually confirmed yesterday that from Jeff Johns himself in an interview with Variety that they have actually started writing the treatment for the film, him and Patty Jenkins together, which is really interesting. So I guess just your guys' first thoughts on this. I don't think anybody should be surprised at all, especially after the critical response and maybe more importantly the financial response to the first Wonder Woman, that there's going to be a sequel. But what do you guys think? Are you pleased that they're moving this quickly? Are you a little bit surprised maybe that they're moving just as quickly as they're moving? Luke, what do you think?
I mean, not really. Like you said, Wonder Woman did really good. Did very good. So good, in fact, that, yeah, do a sequel.
Do a sequel. More.
I can imagine someone immediately saying, yeah, let's do a sequel to this. Let's do this again. This was
think
good.
It was after like the first weekend? It was like, yep.
Probably.
The wheels
like
are
after
moving.
It broke like 100 million, like in its opening week, and they're just like, yeah, let's do a sequul.
I like that.
Let's get on that.
I like making money, and I like fans and critics being happy. Tim, were you at all surprised by just by how quickly they're moving on this second thing?
Not really. It's pretty common for these types of things that when one does well, especially better than they expected, they're going to just move ahead. I mean, the MCU did the same thing with Ant-Man.
That's true. And Ant-Man, I mean, kind of pales in comparison. I think the critical success might be, I would say, as critically successful, maybe not quite as critically successful, certainly not as financially successful, but I compared it to playing the hot hand. You've got to go, with what's working, and clearly this is working. But we also did get some information about who's writing the treatment for the script. Johns said he's writing it with Patty Jenkins, and I kind of seized on that, I think, a little more than most people did, because first of all, Patty Jenkins had nothing to do with writing the first movie, but as of 2 weeks ago, she wasn't even signed on to direct another one. She wasn't contractually obligated to direct another one, and a lot of people were bringing that up as, hey, potentially there's this huge roadblock, this red flag, for a Wonder Woman 2 getting made. But if she's involved in writing the treatment, something tells me that they've negotiated a deal for her to direct the second one, and she's going to be involved in scripting it this time, which is, I think, a pretty good sign. Are you guys at all surprised that Patty Jenkins is taking on a bigger role? What do you think what do you think about her having that role in the second film, Tim?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what she's like as a writer.
She has the receipts, you know that.
I know she has the receipts of the movie doing well, but like you said, she wasn't involved in the writing process, so it's still her success, but I just don't know how she is as a writer, is what I was saying.
That's true. I mean, I'm sure they're going to bring on other people to work with her and, we'll see. She might just be writing the treatment. We don't know necessarily that she's going to be scripting the second one yet. I'm kind of assuming that she'll have a little more of a hand in crafting the story this time around. Luke, any thoughts on Patty Jenkins being a little more involved with the scripting this time?
I think that's pretty cool that she's becoming more involved with it, especially since she kind of had to come in, I guess, after what's her face? Can't remember the other person, but
Gal Gadot?
No, the other director. Oh. Like when she was like the second choice, I think. Well, she was a choice in the beginning, but they didn't go with her. And then when the other person left, then she came on.
The Thor: The Dark World Patty Jenkins of Wonder Woman.
Basically.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
Just the reverse.
Yes. But anyway, I think it's pretty cool that she's taken on more of a role and trying to craft a character with this. I don't remember who wrote the first one. I know
Alan Heinberg, Zack Snyder, and Jason Fuchs.
Okay, so if we get some different people, and if Jeff Johns is involved, I feel like we could get something that kind of maybe fixes the problems that the other one had. Most likely, no video game CGI boss fight, but
that's not really a writing issue. That's more so of a technical issue.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of.
I mean, writing a big boss fight is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
essentially, like a big blow 'em up, hovering swords and junk wreckage and explosions and
yeah, I guess.
But I mean, I guess we'll see what happens because I guess, like Tim said, I don't really know what she is as a writer either. I don't know if she's written anything. So.
Yeah, I probably should have found that out before we started recording.
I mean, she has to
clearly...
have at some point if she's directing a movie of this high a caliber.
I think she did one other movie before Wonder Woman. I can't remember.
I mean, she was known for Monster. I think she did. Did she not do? Okay, she's not the one that did Hurt Locker. That was the person who was originally going to direct Wonder Woman, if I remember correctly, and the name is escaping me.
James Cameron's ex-wife. Okay.
Yes. She was best known for Monster.
No
She'd done some TV, directing. Betrayal, Exposed, The Killing for Netflix. She also wrote Monster, which I think was what she was best known for before Wonder Woman.
Right. Okay.
But so that's why. I mean, that's kind of why a lot of people were talking about how they took a big risk on this movie with Jenkins, and I was like, yeah, it's not necessarily a big risk. It's she's only done a handful of things, but I mean, I would say you found a diamond in the rough there. But we actually also have our first little bit of a plot detail, if you could call it that, about Wonder Woman 2, because Variety also came out with another article. It was a profile on Toby Emmerich, the president of, he's the president of Warner Brothers at this point. Let me double check on his role. He's the president and chief content officer at Warner Brothers, and he actually said they are doubly confirmed, so they are actually starting to work on a Wonder Woman sequel, but then he revealed that it is also going to be set in the past. It's not going to be set in World War I. In his words, sometime between 1917 and 2017, but he did confirm they've got a pretty cool idea for that. Just didn't quite specify what. So, Tim, are they going to do this thing with Wonder Woman where she just kind of just hangs out in the wars?
I don't know. World War II? Honestly, just speaking personally, this wasn't really the direction I wanted it to go. Like, after they set up her backstory, I wanted them to just go with her in the DCEU and not just continually have her before anyone else existed.
That's kind of it's kind of a good point.
I mean, it's good. It's good that she doesn't have doesn't have to interact with anyone because no one's there. But at the same time, I still want to see her in a different setting than in a war again. So hopefully, it's not that.
I agree with you on the different setting, and it was a good point. I think the part of the issue is I think my opinion on that is going to be colored a little more by exactly what her role in Justice League is, because I think we didn't see much of her in Batman v Superman, and certainly like Wonder Woman seems to lead kind of like right into who she is personality-wise in Batman v Superman. So there's really not I'm trying to think of like what is there that are you going to double down on it? It's like
I think
Diana
they have to have
again,
her lose faith in people like she had in BVS.
Which is, so that's kind of interesting because Patty Jenkins is on record as saying there's no deleted scenes from Wonder Woman. Everything that they shot ended up in the movie. So pretty clearly this is how, she could be lying, but it's, if we take that statement at face value, this was what they planned. And so it's pretty clearly like she's not as bummed and, downtrodden at the end of the movie as she was in Batman v Superman. She kind of is doing the whole men are good, men are still good, love is what saves the world, yada yada yada. So it's like, are you just gonna like take it and steer it the complete different direction, or what?
Are they gonna set it in the Vietnam War?
So that's what I was thinking.
Lose faith in people.
It's like World War II. It's like this is this sucks, and then Hitler dies, and it's back to normal. And then the
this
Korean
sucks,
War,
and then
like,
Hitler dies. A Cliff Notes version of World War II.
And then Vietnam War happens, and that's a whole mess.
Well, we skipped the Korean War.
No, I mentioned the Korean War.
You did. I was
like, why
talking.
Are we even
sorry.
here? But then the Vietnam War. She's in Desert Storm and Desert Shield.
The second Gulf War.
There you go.
Yeah,
she's in Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, they could definitely go that route.
Just do a full franchise version of that montage from the beginning of X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Basically, it's her version of that instead of just Thor and.
The more I'm thinking about it, I guess it would kind of make sense to lose faith in humanity because they keep having these huge fucking conflicts, and to a character like her who basically was under the impression that this was all based around like a god, and then she's like, oh, well, sometimes people are just crappy, but if I show them the true path, they'll be fine. But like a few years later, there's like another huge global conflict. I would probably be like, yeah, fuck these people. This time
stupid. With the nukes.
Come on, guys, this is a bit much.
If she were to see the fucking bombs dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, I would probably be done for a little bit.
To me, it's like that or the Holocaust. I think the Holocaust could be like the really big, like, it's like, wow.
Oh boy,
yeah, I can get like setting it
Wonder Woman
continuously
movie with the Holocaust.
I mean, I can get setting it continuously during wars, just to like have her like get worn down by it over time. But it just sort of feels like you only have one idea for this character if that's the only way you're having her progress.
Yeah,
that's why I want a different setting for the sequel.
See, I want a Wonder Woman movie where she just farms in the Dust Bowl. She's just farming. She's battling Mother Nature, and that's it. And then
the
she
grapes
finds out
of
that
wonder.
It was actually Demeter survived when Ares killed all the gods, and Demeter is angry at the humans now. No, I don't know. I'm making this shit up. So if you could, Tim, you kind of expressed like some thoughts on this. When would you set Wonder Woman? Would it be present day?
Honestly, I would just go straight to present day with it. I mean, you can imply that something happened between the time without directly showing it for why she changed between Wonder Woman and BVS. But I just want to see her interacting in modern day so they can build more off of stuff from her franchise in the grander scope of the DCEU. So it's standalone, but it can still touch other things because it's not so far removed.
By imply, you mean another photo emailed to her by Bruce Wayne?
Yes, the photo of her with Steve Jr. in World War II.
Steve, of course.
Steve Jr.
Luke, what time period would you set Wonder Woman
I would have done present day too. I think I did a video on what I would have done, but yeah, like I mean, I kind of agree with Tim because while I kind of see like the whole thing because it's like war just continuously breaks her down. I don't really see the point in showing us that because you can kind of imply that. So if we see her now as a fully fledged character after Justice League, I think that's a little more interesting because they're doing that with Aquaman after Justice League. I just think it's a little more interesting to see where they're going as opposed to what they did. Yeah.
Okay, well, so we've got present day, and Dust Bowl. Let us know in the comment section down below when you would set Wonder Woman 2, of course. But moving on to our next story. Speaking of those articles, basically it's really interesting. We got, looking at the future of the DCEU from the DC side and from the Warner Brothers side. And, I mean, it's a good thing. It seems like they're both kind of in the same direction. And so, starting off with the DC side, Jeff Johns and John Berg, both of the guys that are essentially running the DC film universe for WB, basically, they talked to him I think it was right after Wonder Woman came out, and they're like, why did audiences really dig this? And they had some really interesting responses to that. So Berg was just talking about how it's just a fun movie, it's positive and uplifting, and Johns basically says most of the DC universe is known as being a hopeful and optimistic place. Anyone who knows and loves the DC universe knows that it's got to do with hope and optimism. And he did kind of, but he kind of took that and went a different direction. So they were asked whether Suicide Squad and what went wrong with Suicide Squad and Batman v Superman. And they kind of, I think it was interesting because they were divided on this. Berg said that it was maybe too tonally dark, both of them. And then John said, hey, Wonder Woman celebrated exactly who this character is, but there's nothing to change. That's what these characters are. And so I was kind of curious, what do you guys think about these statements? Do you think we're going to see that trend towards hope and optimism, or are we going to see more of what's already been established, especially after these comments? Luke, what are you thinking?
I don't know. I guess it really just all depends on what happens after Justice League, because I think that's like the last big Zack Snyder-based thing. So I guess we'll have to really see what direction they want to go in. I mean, they've said several times that Justice League was supposed to be the more optimistic movie from Batman v Superman, and I don't ever really think that the tonally dark thing is a huge problem. It's just the way it was kind of implemented and just kind of overbearing.
Well, that's the thing. I never thought that the darkness was the issue. I just thought the movie wasn't very good.
Yeah, like, I mean...
No, absolutely.
Like, there's a lot of ways to go about that, but I mean, I think just at the end of the day, I kind of just want to see what they want to do, if they really... Like, the hope, optimism, and heroism thing, that's all fine and good. I just think that... I just want to see stuff with, like, interesting premises, and I want stuff that'll actually stick with me after watching it. Like, Wonder Woman, for the most part, just the whole themes that I found in it, I thought were really cool, and just what it kind of was saying throughout it. Maybe it kind of got lost in the third act a little bit, but I think, like, in the beginning scenes when she's, like, going through the trenches and she's, like, inspiring people, that's stuff that I want to see. And
exactly.
Did you ever notice that it seems like she kind of guilted Blank into killing himself?
She inspired him to kill himself.
It really feels like she guilted him into that.
She inspired him. Let's stick with inspired. God, she really
a legacy of hope.
Anyway, that's what I just want to see more of. Just more of these, like, heroes, like, actively inspiring people, and I guess just more interesting premises with them. It's never that I don't want them to be tonally dark, but the whole hope optimism thing makes me think that they want to try to make movies about heroes and just struggles that they go through being heroes, not necessarily just, deconstructing them like some of the past movies seem to be more interested in.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I absolutely agree with both of you on the difference between Wonder Woman and Batman v Superman. Going back to Batman v Superman, it wasn't necessarily the darkness that was the issue at all. I mean, you can make a superhero movie as dark as you want. The issue is, in my opinion, it didn't flow. I don't think the story really progressed naturally or made sense. I think the character motivations were pretty shallow at times, and it didn't really explore them. And I think they laid out all these themes, they just didn't really go into them. And there's a certain amount of that in, like, Wonder Woman when they're talking to, like, Chief about, it's like, oh, the last war took everything from my people. It's his people. It's like, okay, thanks for nodding at that.
I love how little she cared about that.
Yeah, thanks for doing nothing with that.
They didn't go into it. It kind of felt cheap because they didn't go into it
Why
at all.
even mention it? At that point, it just seems like she doesn't care about Native American people.
She's like, well, I like these white people better, is basically what she was saying.
But, I mean, I think they did address kind of the horror of war and the fact that it is man and it's something in our nature, but it doesn't have to be. And, it was kind of a little bit, I don't want to say, like, heavy-handed at times, but it was, I think it was more on message. Let's say that. It was more on message and focused on that as a whole. Yep. But they kind of, speaking of Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman's role, they do say that she already played a big role in Justice League. Her role isn't going to change. And they planned a bigger role for her after Batman v Superman because of the fan response. But Tim, did you have any thoughts on kind of what we were talking about, the change of... I know you spoke a little bit about that, but do you think it's really going to shift to hope and optimism after Wonder Woman, or what?
I can see it doing that. There's always been a baseline complaint about the darkness of it, which, like we said here, none of us had an issue with the darkness, but I can see them going this direction since Wonder Woman is by far their most critically successful movie.
Yeah.
So I
Gotta
can
do
see
what
them
works,
wanting
right?
to follow that model as opposed to following what came before it, which had a lukewarm reception even if it did financially well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, audiences don't seem to mind dark superhero movies. People loved Logan. It's just how DC happened to do it that wasn't very good.
Yeah.
True. I mean, so kind of just briefly, there's more in this article about Joss Whedon, and speaking to the role that he's going to play in Justice League. Our newest employee Yusuf did a video on that just the other day. I think right before this came out, so kind of bad timing there. But they did confirm that Joss was actually already kind of tangentially involved in the DCEU. He was kind of collaborating a little bit, and he'd been talking to Jeff Johns and John Byrne for a while. And he came in one day, saw Batgirl on the board, and, I'm going to quote this. He said, "You guys seriously want to do Batgirl?" And we said, "Absolutely." And he said, "That's my jam." And so that's kind of how
then he whipped
him
his
writing
dick
and
out.
directing that, basically.
Put it on the table. That was also paraphrasing. He said, "Yo, that's my shit."
That's my shit. They just had to change it up.
And he was holding an armful of Bo Duke action figures.
Yes, that's how he bought his way into the picture. But going to the WB side of things, after the DC side, there was a really interesting profile on Toby Emmerich. I'm sure we're going to link it in the description. And he kind of took over as president of Warner Brothers just last year, just kind of after Batman v Superman, kind of towards I think it was later in the summer when Wonder Woman was wrapping up production. And he did have some more things to say. And basically, it does kind of talk about his success. Basically, what he does is he's I don't want to say like a cost cutter, but he is very cost efficient in his movies, and that's something that Warner Brothers would probably like to get better at, especially looking at things like Pan, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and King Arthur: Legend of the Sword. Those are the three movies this article cites, all of them big budget.
I forgot The Man from U.N.C.L.E. even happened.
I did too, and what sucks is that I liked it, but they did kind of talk about how just kind of briefly, he's really positive about the DCEU, basically talking about how the movie feels fresh because of the heart and humor, basically, and how apparently, not apparently, but in his mind, America and the world was ready for this female superhero. They do talk about Gotham City Sirens, which is coming up in Batgirl, so there is a focus on more female heroes and more Diana Prince also in the future. But he does say, and this is the one thing I wanted to talk about, he does say that he likes movies like Deadpool and Logan and wouldn't be surprised if they made an R-rated DC movie. So I was going to ask, which of the upcoming DC projects do you think they could make R-rated?
Gotham City Sirens.
Gotham City Sirens is R-rated, Luke?
I mean, isn't Batman v Superman technically R-rated?
The Ultimate Cut was.
Yeah, so I mean, they already kind of have done that.
But I mean, I was just going to say the way
I think they mean in theaters.
Alright. Could have been an R-rated movie from what I remember.
That's true.
Yeah, I guess Gotham City Sirens. Can't really think of anything else.
I'm hoping for the R-rated Lobo movie at some point.
The R-rated Batgirl movie. Uncensored and uncut.
From Joss Whedon, it'll definitely be that way. But no, it's a really interesting article about this guy that's basically running the show. He's calling the shots on your favorite comic characters and films. Although he did say he's working hand in hand with the DC guys because he's not a big comic guy himself. But it just sounds like a really interesting guy, so I highly recommend you check that out. There's really not much more that I think I can glean from this that they didn't talk about in the other DC article. But moving on to our next story today, we actually have a little more interesting, dramatic information.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm sure by now, I'm sure by now all of you have heard about the drama going on over at the Han Solo movie, because guess what? 3 weeks left of filming, Kathleen Kennedy fires the directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, kind of to the shock of everybody in Hollywood, because that just does not happen. To put in perspective, filming since January, fired in June. They were literally 3 weeks away from filming, and then they had some more reshoots coming up this summer. But damn, it's absolutely nuts that something like this happened. But kind of one of the things that it kind of seized on was, hey, Flash needs a director. Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I think they wrote a treatment for it at one point. Maybe they could come back and direct this, and we don't know if that's the why of they left, and I don't think it is, because it's been revealed that Kennedy fired them. But basically, apparently they met with Lord and Miller during a production hiatus from Han Solo. They met with Lord and Miller right after Rick Famuyiwa left the project. So a lot of people are saying that they might step in. They might step in and work on the project, and they did actually write the original script treatment for The Flash in 2015. So what do you guys think about this? Do you think Lord and Miller could be the answer for The Flash? And would you be fine with that, Tim?
It couldn't hurt. It's better than nothing.
It's true. It's better. It is better than nobody directing the movie.
Yeah. I think it'll be fine with them doing that. I think if them meeting with Warner Brothers is the reason they got fired, they might as well do that. I mean, it's not confirmed, but just in case it is.
No, I mean it's one of those things where I think they were fired for other reasons, because if you read some of the articles that have been coming out over the last few days at this point, because this is going up Thursday, if you read some of the articles, it makes very clear that there was just culture clash, and they didn't get along with Kathleen Kennedy or Lawrence Kasdan at all. And we don't know what the specific event was that precipitated their firing, but it doesn't sound like... it sounds like it was a combination of like a long-term thing, and then something happened that just crossed the line. But I doubt it was meeting with WB.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. But I think it would be fine with them taking over for it.
It's a loss for Disney and for Lucasfilm, because everything they've touched pretty much has turned to gold. I mean, critically and financially. So we'll see, of course, what happens with Han Solo, a movie that they basically shot 90% of. But Luke, what do you think about this development with Lord and Miller and the fact that they met with WB about directing The Flash? What do you make of that?
I think that could be pretty cool. Did they write anything for Flash in the past, or am I thinking of someone else?
No, they actually did write the original script treatment in 2015, and then WB brought on Seth Grahame-Smith, and he rewrote the script, and then they got Rick Famuyiwa, and Rick Famuyiwa rewrote the script, and then they fired Rick Famuyiwa, and I think they hired Joby Harold to rewrite the script.
Okay.
And now that King Arthur Legend of the Sword was a dud, maybe Miller and Lord are going to rewrite the script again.
They're just going to bring back. They're just going to bring back their first draft.
Back to the first draft. Let's start this over again.
But I mean, I think that could be fun. I feel like they'd be a good fit for the character. I guess I'll just be interested in see how they handle like action sequences and stuff, because the Flash is like the one character where you feel like you'd want to be as creative as possible and fleshing out some action stuff. But I think they'd be fine in terms of like the character's humor and his personality, and just hit him in general, Barry Allen, who I guess technically is Wally West, but they just call him Barry.
Wally Allen.
I think Wally Allen. I think it's pretty much like a perfect fit in terms of the humor and the tone of the character and what they're shooting for, what the studio wants from everything that we've heard. I mean, it might have been a situation where they passed on it in the first place because they wanted to go work on Han Solo. That was a pretty bang thing, if I remember correctly. But who knows? Now that their schedule's clear, why not? And that'll certainly... And especially if WB says, okay, yeah, that first script was pretty fire, let's go back to that.
They can join Charlie Hunnam on the Green Arrow movie.
That's true. Yeah. Then they can do that. Joby Harold is going to go right there.
Just all the unemployed people in Hollywood just gather together on Green Arrow.
That's true.
Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser, yes.
Brendan Fraser is Malcolm Merlyn.
Yes.
All in favor? Rob just got hard somewhere. I don't.
I'm gonna guess in England.
You don't know. He could be somewhere else. But oh my god! All right. So moving on to our last story today. Don't have much to talk about there. It's kind of all speculation, rumor, and conjecture, as I like to say. Moving on to our last story today. Something a little bit more solid. HBO is reportedly developing a Watchmen TV series, and that had been rumored for months. This comes to us by way of Variety, and it looks like it's got a very specific name attached to write and kind of, I guess, be the showrunner on it, Damon Lindelof, who of course helped co-write and I guess kind of co-run The Leftovers. Of course, he worked on Lost and Prometheus. So it's kind of maybe a little dodgy, but he does have a lot of success in TV. Going back to Lost, and of course, The Leftovers is so fantastic. If you haven't seen that, this would be incredible. What do you guys think about a Watchmen TV series in general? I saw a lot of people. Personally, I'm excited because I love the book, but I saw a lot of people that are like, I've got enough Watchmen with the original comic before Watchmen and now DC Rebirth. I don't need this TV show. Do you guys agree with that, or are you excited for this?
I'm kind of lukewarm on the TV show idea, to be perfectly honest. Like, I don't know what more you do with Watchmen unless they're setting different stories inside the Watchmen universe. Otherwise, it's just an alternate adaptation of the movie we got a few years ago.
I can tell you it is going to be an alternate adaptation. Apparently, it's going to be a clean slate. I wouldn't call it a reboot, but it is going to be basically starting from scratch. So it is going to be a second attempt at adapting the comic. It will
so
not
as opposed to
be
adapting it directly, they're going to do the same story slightly more indirectly and longer?
Potentially, yes. For 10 hours instead of...
Okay,
what? The movie was like 7?
I don't see the point to doing this, but if it does, well, great.
I mean, so here's the thing. I'm a big fan of the comic and the characters, and even to a degree the movie. I treat the movie and the comic completely separately. I enjoyed the movie for its own reasons. It changed a lot. I personally would like to see if we get a more faithful adaptation on TV, especially with Lindelof, to explore more of that story and that universe. Although we don't necessarily know, things can change. This is just a first report. It might be before Watchmen. It could be something like that. But
Watchmen babies.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't really know how to feel about it either, in all honesty, because I also like the book a lot, but the movie is fine, I think. I just think maybe some of the overall messages of the book were kind of lost in the huge amounts of violence and pretty over-the-top physical strength of the characters.
I definitely see that from the movie. I think on its own, it's a fine adaptation of it, even if it changed some stuff.
Yeah, the movie's fine. It's just, I don't know, because if you were to do an HBO show, I guess you could maybe try to get a few more moments with characters that maybe you didn't feel really came through in the book, and you could maybe try and just make some more like quiet moments between people and not have it so action oriented. But at the same time, I don't really see a point in doing this either. I don't know why they couldn't just maybe adapt something else. Like, I know Nick forever has been saying The Question should get something, and I mean, I feel like a DC character that isn't ever going to be in a movie probably should get a little bit more of a chance than Watchmen, which has been getting so much stuff recently. And I mean,
why don't you just do the opposite of Watchmen and go back and do the Charlton Heroes? That's what Watchmen's based on anyway.
Yeah, like that would be kind of interesting to just see Charlton characters getting shown on HBO and stuff. And I mean, again, like, I don't really see a point if you're just going to be doing the same story again. But I guess Series of Unfortunate Events kind of did the same thing with Netflix. I guess the only difference there being that they're a little bit more faithful, but I don't know.
Well, they don't have to tie it in like directly like the movie did.
Yeah.
And the movie didn't do very well, so it made sense for that.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Okay. I want you to fan cast one of the characters. It could be any of the characters, any of them at all. I would just fan cast one of the Watchmen. I personally, just sticking in The Leftovers, something that Lindelof was very heavily involved in. I think Chris Eccleston could be a pretty good Rorschach, especially with that character Matt Jameson from The Leftovers. I think that would be a really natural transition for him.
I do Chris Eccleston as Ozymandias.
Really?
Yeah, he seems to have that swagger about him.
That's true.
I'm gonna do you one better. Chris Eccleston as Silk Spectre.
Oh, perfect.
Chris Eccleston as the entire cast of Watchmen the motion comic. This shit.
I think it was going to be Jaleel White as so expected.
No, actually, I wasn't going to do Jaleel White because I don't like that joke anymore.
Jaleel White is Dr. Manhattan.
Actually, if I want to give a serious answer, I'd probably actually have Sam Rockwell as a Night Owl.
Ooh, that'd be good. I think I'd be down for someone like Jason Isaacs as Ozymandias as well. I love me some Jason Isaacs.
Yep.
He brings that evil Britishness.
Jason Isaacs might also be a pretty solid Dr. Manhattan.
That would be dope too. He's got the head for it and the nose.
Who played comedian in the first one?
Ooh,
I forget.
Because he was in
Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, the Thomas Wayne dude. I forget his name.
Yeah.
Negan.
Why don't you just go ahead?
Jeffrey
and bring
Dean
him
Morgan.
Back.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Okay.
Yeah, just go ahead and bring him back.
Just bring him back.
Perfect.
I'd be fine if they brought back Rorschach from the movie. He was good.
He was pretty good in there.
Jackie Earle Haley,
he'd be fantastic. Yeah. Anyway, I'm personally excited for this. I really am. Even if you guys aren't, let us know in the comment section down below whether you are or aren't, and why I'm right. But moving on to the viewer questions, we actually have a good number of these. We're just going to see how many we get through. Sound good?
Sure.
Yeah.
We've got a little time limit, so and this actually directly ties into what we were talking about today. Good job, Kieran. Kieran99344 asks, after the success of Wonder Woman being a World War I timepiece, what are your thoughts of Wonder Woman 2 being in a World War II time period? And do you think DC may avoid this because of Captain America, the first adventure being set in World War II? That's actually a really good question. Tim, what do you think? We were
I can
I know you want into the present day.
Yeah, well,
but
they're not doing that, so so I guess I mean, I don't think that they'll hesitate to do World War II, because honestly, going from a World War to the present day would make people think of Captain America also.
That's true.
But yeah, I don't think that they'd be hesitant to do it because of Captain America, but I think they might try something different.
I mean, they weren't hesitant to do this movie because of Captain America or Thor. I think they might avoid World War II, but I'm sure they have something in mind. And if they really want to do it, I don't think they'll stop. But Luke, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really think they'd want to do World War II. Just feel like the bucket's kind of, I don't know what the expression is. The well is dry on that one. So you should probably just do
the bucket is empty.
I was gonna say the bucket is smooth or something. I don't remember exactly.
What does that mean?
Make sense. I didn't know. That's why I said I didn't know what the expression was.
It's a saying from Lake Charles.
I was like, that doesn't make sense. Why would I say that?
Let us know in the comments. Are your buckets smooth?
My bucket is rough and rusty. Didn't know.
But
how about you, CJ?
So you say?
Oh, you already went.
I don't think they'd avoid it. I think they probably are looking at something different just because they opted for something different this time with World War One, a war that's not really explored. So I'm kind of thinking they stick with that trend and maybe do the Korean War like we were talking about. But who knows? I mean, you really can't. I think the World War II medium is a little bit oversaturated just because everyone and their mother does, a World War II movie.
But it's a very glamorized war.
Yes, it is by far and away our most covered war.
Very glamour.
It is compared to every other war.
Yeah, it is.
I just like the sentence. I just like the
glamorized.
Sentence. World War II, the most glamorized war.
It's glammed up. But moving on to our next question, Kieran also had another one that was pretty good. He said, if we see a Suicide Squad 2, do you think the roster of characters will be changed up a lot? Who would your top 6 characters be in the movie if you could pick any? This is a tough question. It's a very broad question.
God, 6.
I'm going to split it up. We're each going to take 2 characters and build a 6-man team.
Okay.
Luke, who would your 2 characters in this 6-man team be?
Do they have to be different, or can they?
You can do carryover.
No, they can be the same.
Okay. Deadshot and Blockbuster.
Cool. Tim, who would your 2 characters be?
Captain Boomerang and Bronze Tiger.
Very nice. I'm going to choose somehow a Blackest Night Slipknot, who's just running around without a head. And this is tough.
We need a girl on the team.
Bring back Katana. She had their back. I advise not being killed by her. Her sword traps the souls of the people she kills.
Yada yada.
Oh,
Yes.
Probably get Plastique. Plastique would be
Plastique
cool.
That would
would
be
be
dope.
cool, yeah.
Ugh. All right. So that's our 6-man team. It's not a good one.
No, we probably should have
We're
done it
not
on our
supposed-
own.
They
Well,
are
they're
some
not
kind of Suicide Squad.
I mean, they're not supposed to be like. Yeah, it wasn't a good one.
All right. Well, sorry, Kieran, but on to our next question. Jacob Benton asks, who is the next character from the Flash universe that you want to be introduced in the DCEU? Mine would either be Captain Cold or Mirror Master, just to get more rogues into the DCEU. Great question, Jacob. I do want the rogues. That's kind of my... But I would also like to see Reverse Flash. Tim, which Flash character would you like to see introduced next?
If we're going for just one, I'll do Captain Cold.
Yes. Any particular reason, or just...
I like him as
So
a
frosty.
character, and I don't
He's
want to
so
see
cool.
another speedster fight.
True. I'd like to see if like the DCEU is going to do what the TV show has failed to do, and have him fight people that aren't speedsters.
Form the Rogues finally, since they put that in the title of all of Captain Cold's episodes.
Thank God. But, all right. Luke, who would you introduce?
Gorilla Grodd.
That'd be tight. That'd be tight.
Just because I want to see him fight a gorilla in the movies.
You want to see the monkey?
I want to see him.
Monkey.
Monkey.
He's an ape.
Monkey.
He's an ape.
Ape together strong. All right. Speaking of, War for the Planet of the Apes apparently is amazing. Moving on to our next question. Classy Ulysses asks, since SDCC is about a month away, are we going to see Zack Snyder at Comic-Con with Joss, or just Joss with the Justice League cast? Thanks and have a good day. Thank you so much for your manners. It's a good question. We're all going to be there. Luke, do you think you'll see Zack Snyder in the flesh with your special eyes?
Probably not, considering his family troubles. Joss, probably, or something. If some higher-ups, I'm assuming. Zack Snyder himself, I wouldn't think so. I think he's probably still dealing with his, very big loss.
Tim.
Yeah, I don't expect to see him. I don't think he would have handed off the reins of Justice League if he wasn't going to do that for all of his DCEU responsibilities.
True. Personally, I don't think we're going to see Zack, but I don't know that we're going to see Joss either. I think my gut says it's probably going to be the Justice League cast with maybe like Jeff Johns. And I think that's probably going to be it. Because I just think they want to avoid the optics of like Joss being there with the cast like he has been the director for the entire movie. Personally, if it was me, I would just say, neither Zack nor Joss. Of course, I can also see a situation where they just bring Zack out as kind of a surprise. All right, I think we've got time for one more. Scott Plier, pop cult fan, asks, if Connor Kent ever appeared in the DCEU, do you guys think they'll follow the character's origin to where he is created as a Supes clone from Superman's DNA and Lex Luthor's DNA, or do you think they would change up the origin? That's a good one. Tim, what do you think? If they bring in Connor Kent, would they change up the origin or keep it the same?
I can see them keeping it the same way. They may also do the new 52 version where he's technically a clone of the future son of Superman and Lois Lane, but they could do Superman and Lois Lane combined together for it as opposed to him and Lex.
That's true. I think that might work a little more naturally. Luke, what do you think?
Why exactly did the body become Doomsday?
I don't know.
I'm just wondering, because if we're going to do this again, I don't want to break any rules and not have a Doomsday Superboy just because, who cares about Batman v Superman?
Just ignore it ever happened.
Lex is
Fine.
secretly part ogre.
I mean, I think it's a lot easier to just make him a clone and do the whole thing from the comics, but, I mean, if they really do want to change it up, I think what you guys said could probably work.
I mean, personally, I think they're going to stay away from it being like a partial Lex clone, just because we already had that with Doomsday. That was the way they decided to go, and I don't think they'd want to do the whole it's like Lex again, like really kind of thing.
Lex
So I
really
think
wants
Tim's
to
idea
put
with,
himself
like
inside of Superman.
he does.
Like, I mean, I guess if he's a clone, maybe raised by Lex, and maybe like Bizarro is like a other clone that was just messed
Failed
up,
clone.
and
His older brother,
You know.
Bizarro.
yeah, exactly.
It's the family portrait. All right.
I want to see that family portrait of Jesse Eisenberg, Connor Kent, and Bizarro.
It's a weird Goonies remake, but all right, that about brings us to the end of this episode 87 of Super Friends. We're only 13 away from number 100, and we're going to be there before Marvelite unless we decide to take a week off. So that is actually, I think, going to do it from us here. Of course, if you have any questions, be sure to hit us up in the comment section down below or on Twitter with the hashtag AskSuperFriends. Your comment will probably be read on the air. We love doing that for you guys. Tim, where can people find you on social media?
They can find me on Twitter at Aussie Dragoon.
And Luke?
I am on Twitter at Baron_Zemo1.
And I am on Twitter at CJ Pascal, as you see sometimes in the old H&Ns. Before Josh made me take my Twitter out of there. Oh well. On that down note, this is the end of Super Friends number 87. Not for good, but I really don't know how to end this thing, so I'm just going to say bye. Guys,
bye.
Do you want
Later.
to say bye? Bye!